Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. Exciting day for Newcastle United as we make our first signing of the summer in Lloyd Kelly. And according to The Athletic, are not waiting around for their next, having been reported Newcastle have made contact with Crystal Palace over Olise. Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. Hope you guys are all enjoying your week. Looking forward to the start of the Euros tomorrow night, England on Sunday, but it's all about Newcastle in this video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Loads of videos coming out at the moment, and as I say, our first signing of the summer. Not that it's a huge surprise. I think Lloyd Kelly has been quite heavily linked throughout the last few weeks, if not months at this point, and is technically not done yet. It will be official on the 1st of July when his contract with Bournemouth runs out at the end of this month. So it's a free transfer. Newcastle bringing in our first player, centre-back, tick. Well, you could say that maybe there's opportunity to look at an additional centre-back this summer window, depending on how we get on. But I think getting stuff done early in a tournament summer, quite often when there's a lot going on, transfers are harder to do. So I think it's key that Newcastle have acted fast. We've seen it in the past. I mean, the Gordon transfer worked out amazingly of how good he's been, but I think we targeted him on the 1st of January and we signed him on the 31st, so to be in a position where the transfer window technically doesn't actually open until tomorrow. So Newcastle putting signed, sealed, delivered on their website, Twitter page today, Instagram, confirming that Lloyd Kelly is a Newcastle player is big. And we've spoken about it already. I think it's a big summer for us. We didn't get Europe last season. I think the hope was that we would have some form of European football, and we don't have it. And I think because of that, there's a bit of expectation. I think, I hesitate to say it, but I am fully into us going for it and getting Europe. There's some, I think for a lot of people, it's a very much an expectation that we will go and have Europe. We don't have as many games this time round. Don't have as many games, we should be on top of the injury situation, and we should be bringing players in this summer window to make sure that we have the strength and depth, that there is nothing to hold us back this time around. We've got 7th place, the first team in 15 years to get 7th and not get European football, so you could say that luck wasn't on our side, but yes, Lloyd Kelly, big tick. Likelihood is, I think for me, he will go straight in as that left-sided centre-back, while Botman's injured. However, Dan Burn actually finished the season really strong for us in that position. So for me, it's moving the likes of a Dummett and a Ritchie out and bringing in a Lloyd Kelly, a 25-year-old lad on a long deal. Don't get me wrong, he might be free, but I'll tell you what, his wages won't be. He will be getting a nice chunk of money, and he brings something a little bit different. I think Botman is a very assured, classy centre-back, but I wouldn't say he's necessarily the quickest. And Shaw's getting a little bit older, so is Dan Burn. Lloyd's kind of 25 years old, and he's pretty quick on his feet. So I think it's, again, not just bringing in the depth, but bringing in different players to deal with different situations. And I think the fact that we've brought him in for no money means that Newcastle are saving that little bit of money to spend somewhere else. And as it happens, not long after the Kelly deal gets announced, Newcastle, huge links to Olise. That's right, the Crystal Palace right winger who Newcastle, I think at this point, who wasn't being linked with Olise. It's very clear that he has played very, very well for Crystal Palace. I mean, Crystal Palace is the most represented team in the England squad, or at least the provisional squad. So it's clear that Crystal Palace have got some good players in there. And then, as reported by The Athletic this afternoon, Newcastle are one of the teams who have contacted Crystal Palace about the availability of the player. Now, it's clear, or it looks very much like Chelsea are the front runners for the player at the moment, but it doesn't mean that there isn't some competition to be had for the player. Newcastle, Bayern Munich are also looking to get in talks with Crystal Palace over the player. Olise was originally linked to Chelsea last summer window, where he actually opted in the end to not make the move and instead signed an increased deal with Crystal Palace to stay at the club. Because of that, obviously, the contract being extended, etc., has added that little bit extra on. And if a club was to come in for Olise, it just means that they are really going to have to push to bring in, what is a fantastic player, and are probably going to have to pay the money for it. It's not a case where you can walk in and just do what you want, especially when he's just signed an extended deal. But just 22 years old, Premier League experience, has shown this season what he can do. Will not be cheap. But as I've said already, I think Newcastle have got a big summer ahead of them, and want to try and take that next step. I think Newcastle have kind of already done that for the start of this window by Eddie Howe pulling on his big boy pants and telling Dummett, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give you another 1-year deal, and telling Matt Ritchie, as much as we love having you around, it is time to maybe go and by all means, I think Ritchie's going to go and possibly join another club, so even he's not done yet. He'll be playing forever. Take a step and move on to somewhere different. Looks like we're hopefully going to move Fraser out. Hayden looks like he's going to move to Bravka as well. So, this is the kind of conversation we were having last summer, and we didn't really do it. I think Eddie Howe's been careful, and I mentioned this already. I watched bloody Gary Neville and Wayne Rooney's chat. And Wayne Rooney said, when the likes of Scholes, Neville, whatever left, it was then him who came in with, I think it was like John O'Shea and Wes Brown, who I would not have assumed were the leaders of a dressing room maybe. And then he was like, there was no one really under them. And he believes that because of that, there's the Manchester United team that's right now is kind of lacking leadership. And I can see that in what Eddie Howe's trying to do. He's trying to keep a hold of maybe some of those senior players. You don't want to just get rid of all of them and everyone's looking around going, what's going on? Right now, it's kind of a Callum Wilson, it's Trippier, it's Byrne, it's Gillespie, possibly with his extra 1-year deal, but these players are going to move on as well, and it's trying to bring through the next era. And I think Kelly, at just 25 years old, will go in as our youngest centre-back. Yeah, so I think it makes sense in that move, and it makes sense to what we're trying to do this summer, moving some of them out, but not all, and trying to really bring in some fresh blood and some attacking, exciting players as well. So yes, big news on Lloyd Kelly coming through the door, as I mentioned, on a free, so it's kept Newcastle's spend nice and low to start this summer window off. Looks like Trafford could well be the next player in the goalkeeping position. Bearing in mind we scored a hell of a lot of goals last season, but conceded too many. Really it wasn't that we didn't score enough goals, although Olise, I'm sure, would add a few more, and as would a striker that we want to see come in. Let's not negate the defence, and I think Lloyd Kelly's a great start. I want to see a new goalie, if not to replace Paul, but at least come in as second and give us that more reassurance in that spot, and potentially even another centre-back, depending on how we get on, and then, try and splash a bit of cash in those forward positions, because although Isak is the man, he needs some support, and as, good as Murphy has been, I would say that maybe he's not quite at that next step, but is a great player to have in the squad over there. But we need to strengthen that side as well. And if there's a possibility that Olise could be linked, it would be a good one. Like, don't get me wrong, Chelsea have been flirting with this guy for a while now, going back to all the way to last summer. So for Newcastle to be trying to poke their nose in and see what's going on, I don't mind a bit of that. But I think it may be tough. But as I say, the likes of an Athletic report, and it's a pretty good report to come out, so we will see what happens next. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts on Lloyd Kelly joining down below, and the option of Olise. Would you have him even at the big fees? They're talking like 50, 60, 70 million. It will not be cheap. Thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.